Welcome to the Portly AI Human Capital Squad Talk, where we engage in conversations about the changing business landscape and how human capital and other C suite leaders are approaching this. I'm Susan Gans, and I'm your host. I am the Human Capital Squad leader for Portly AI and a board advisor, and I'm also the business strategist with GAN Strategic Solutions. Today, we are in for a treat. We have Kathy Eastwood with us. She is the CEO and founder of E equals Y and the creator of the E3 Leadership Code, and we will get into that. Throughout her career, Kathy has been known as a strong operator who gets things done. With a foundation as a CPA and with more than 30 years of experience as a Chief People Officer, Chief of Staff, and VP for Business Operations, she has worked at the intersection of people, technology, operations, and business performance. Her career has included leadership roles with Ernst & Young, Reuters, Mercury Interactive, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, PlanView, and Data Intensity, which gives her all this experience across global enterprises, high growth technology companies, and private equity backed SaaS and services businesses. But she learned that getting things done was not enough, no matter how strong the strategy, technology, or execution plan. If people were not part of the equation, you were never going to win, something I believe in too. And today, Kathy helps leaders and organizations close the gap between vision and results through a more human approach to high performance. Her work is grounded in the belief that people and performance are not competing priorities. The strongest leaders know how to deliver both. She's the author of the E3 Leadership Code, a human approach to high performance. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thanks so much, Susan. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's get into it. I know this would be a fun conversation. So, we've heard it in your bio, and I experienced this firsthand in observing you. So, you have a very human and heart centered approach to leadership and transformation. Please share with us your framework that you discuss in your book.
Sure. What I've learned over the years as I've been trying to go through, numerous transformations, whether we were growing a business, contracting a business, organizational redesigns, you name it. I feel like acquisitions, right? Acquiring five different businesses, bringing them together. What I've learned over that time is leadership really isn't complex, but it is hard. And the research shows us that individual teams and organizations, less than 30% of those folks actually accomplish their goals.
Hmm.
And that means more than 70% are failing. And I'm thinking, wow, well, what is the 30% doing different? And that's when I pulled together all my research, my experience, and codified the E3 Leadership Code. And what that tells us is what is critical to be successful, and it's about balance. So the E3 is express plus engage plus execute, powered by emotions. And how I like to describe it for folks is if you think about a three-legged stool, that the legs are that express, engage, execute, and the seat is the emotional qualities. That's the glue that keeps it all together. And as leaders, we have to be able to balance those three legs. They need to be even because if one is off, the chair is going to fall. And if it's off too much, right, we're falling off the chair.
Yes.
And so it starts with expression, expressing an end vision. Where are we going? Why are we going? What's the purpose? As leaders, we need to ensure there is complete clarity on the end goal. Because once we have that clarity, then we can work to engage our people. And that engagement means speaking their language. We often talk about the golden rule, which says treat others the way you want to be treated. I challenge everyone to think about the platinum rule. Treat people the way they want to be treated so that they connect with their heart, right? So we're not telling them what to do. We're telling them where we want to go and asking them to come on board with us, right? So they're bought in. Now, a lot of leaders are really great visionaries. So they're great at that expression. There's a lot of great collaborators. But that third leg, which is critical, is the operations and that execution. We need to have governance. We need to have the dashboard to know if we're meeting our deadlines, meeting our goals, knowing where we have to course correct, where we have to have difficult conversations, how we have to hold people accountable. So, like I said, it's not complex, but it's hard to balance all of that. And the leaders that bring that emotional qualities to the table, showing up aware, authentic, empowering, enabling. When you bring all of those skills to the table, that's when you really can connect to the hearts of the people. And that's where you amplify the expressed vision, engaging your people and executing to drive results.
Yes, absolutely. That engagement. I love what you said to come aboard. It's really inviting them into a journey. And I think that that resonates with people. At least in my experience, I've seen it, and obviously you've seen it. And it seems like what you're saying, the research also bears that out.
Absolutely. It's proven that when people are involved and you come from a people first point of view, you're actually more profitable as a business. And the data shows us that you'll be 23% more profitable as a business when you focus on the people first. And it really creates a whole virtuous cycle in that, a lot of folks are aware of, where does the money come from, right? Well, people are engaged, they're more productive, they're not leaving, so your retention rates are higher, so you're not the cost of um, hiring and onboarding goes down. People are more innovative, right? So that drives revenue. And when people are happy and they're engaged, then your customers are happy, right? They treat customers better. Now your customers are excited, they're buying more, they're renewing, they're referring you. And if all of those numbers keep improving, that's where your profitability comes from. And that's that virtuous cycle. Start with the people, and you will see that your business results will pay off.
Absolutely. So now we're in an era of very fast paced change. So what is your guidance to leaders and navigating this unprecedented pace?
Yeah, I mean, as leaders, that's our job is to navigate change, right? So we need to remember that this is really a change management transformational journey that we're on. What I see with AI is it is spotlighting things quicker and potentially what's already broken. Right. So I look at it as the spotlight on everything. If you didn't have good processes, AI is only going to, it's like automation, right? You're only going to automate garbage. If you have friction between your teams, AI is only going to spotlight the problems. And it's the speed at which all of this is going that as leaders, we need to make sure that all of our people are on board because we can't do this alone. We can't just push this through and hope, oh, we're going to implement AI and it's going to make things go quicker. No, we need to make sure that the processes, the systems, and the people are all working well together. And there's a stat, I don't know if you've seen this one yet, but Boston Consulting Group has shared that all of this investment into AI is not paying off because 70% of the people aren't adopting it and buying in. And so this is where leadership is so critical. If we don't get our people on board and bought in, then any investment we're making in AI is wasted. And so that's what I think is so important in this fast pace of change. Our leaders have to be ready to get people on board.
So a follow-up question, because I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Where I see particular challenge is a trust factor between leadership and their workforces around, you know, just pick up any headline on any given day on any platform, and you're reading about layoffs and fear of job loss, and there could be job change, and there's actually new jobs that we don't even know about that are being created. So my question to you is how do leaders then communicate transparently, and some of it they don't even know, so they don't know the full story, and how do you gain the trust of people so that we calm their nervous systems around the fear that they have?
As leaders, we have to really dig deep, in my opinion, and be aware of ourselves and of our people and be honest, right? Leaders are not supposed to have all the answers. I think there's this perception out there of I need to know everything. And so therefore, I'm better off not to say anything if I don't know the answers. Well, in a vacuum, if you're not saying anything, people are making assumptions. And with this fast pace of change that's coming with AI and the amount of, I call it feud, fear, ego, uncertainty, and doubt, if we're not speaking as leaders, then our people are filling that vacuum, right? They're assuming. And it's okay as a leader to say, I don't know all the answers, but we're going to figure this out together. And, as a leader, I think one of the best things you can do is actually ask your people, what's your feud? Tell me about it. What's your fear, ego, uncertainty, and doubt? Let's talk about it. Let me share with you mine, right? Now let's talk about what we do know. Let's express a vision of what this will look like, right? Like, wait a minute. So if we can get AI in here, won't that help us take away the mundane task? You're always complaining to me that you spend all this time on administrative work. What if we could get rid of that? What if we could get you spending more time on strategic work than tactical? So we need to first understand what that feud is, paint the end vision of where we're going, and then put it in words that I think lands with people. Because everyone's point of view is different. This is where that platinum rule comes in, not only communication, but what's your WIFM? Your WIFM may be very different from mine. I'm on my purpose, I'm very purpose driven. So if you can help me have my purpose land better, that's going to be better. Other people want to make sure they're secure for their family and they're providing, right? So we need to learn about each person so we can put that forward. So it's really, this is where the humanity comes into play so much, Susan, where just trying to understand people, because we're all human, we're all fearful, and we all want to succeed.
Absolutely. And, as you were talking, what you're really saying is to be able to share very authentically and vulnerably, like what Brene Brown
Mm-hmm,
talks about and models, uh, with our people.
mm-hmm,
And not everybody's open to doing that. But as we said at the top of the show, the research is bearing out that when you are mindful and intentional and purposeful in sharing with your people, and taking them on the journey with you of where the company is going, and that they're part of that whole growth, and it's okay not to know all of the answers, which I think is also another mindset shift, a big one.
if you don't mind, can I share one quick
Yes,
example?
yes,
So,
please.
AI is obviously the newest thing that we're worried about, but automation has been around for some time.
Of course.
And I was leading a team where we did contract operations across the globe, for a $2 billion business, right? And I was told that I needed our team to automate everything, right? This team that did all of the manual processing of all of the contracts for renewals needed to be automated. So I had two choices to start in this process, right? First of all, you want to talk about fear, ego, uncertainty, and doubt. Massive, right? Jobs are going away, no ifs, ands, or buts. So I could have just put the process together and handed it to my team and say, go execute, and sorry. But what I did is I flew them all in from all over the world, and we sat down for a week and said, what would this look like if we could automate all of your tasks? What do you hate? What, keeping you up at night? And they designed a future state with me. And what it meant was, okay, so we're going to automate all of the mundane, and I'm going to look for those opportunities to be more strategic. May mean a new role, it may mean, new opportunities. But together we did this, and they managed the entire process, right? And the last person closed the lights and went on to their next job. There wasn't any question. There was full transparency. This is happening. You're part of this, but you're helping us design it rather than you don't even, if you tell me what to do, you don't even know it. You're not doing my job. You're going to miss something. And so it was just so rewarding to watch this process, play out, that people were part of it, and people want to do the right things.
I am so with you on this, and it reminds me of this initiative I worked with when I was on Wall Street. Is very similar to it wasn't hey, we're going to automate everything and people losing their jobs. It was more of, for investment bankers, how can you get to market quicker if you had automated the part of the pitch book process that we didn't really hire you for, right? We
Mhm.
didn't hire you to figure out what font, what colors, the spacing should be, et cetera, et cetera. We wanted your brain power about analyzing the companies and the financials and thinking strategically about how to position the bank to win this particular mandate. And um, I I similarly did something to you, which was bring in the stakeholders from around the world. But the company that I was working for had to fail at the initiative 8 times
Yeah.
before it happened, before switching up the formula. And it goes to, finding out why. Why did it fail? Which was because the stakeholders weren't involved. So I firsthand have seen that profitability,
Mm.
statistic, and the ownership that people have when they're involved and are given voice to things and then are rolling up the sleeves and working on it and co-creating. It's very empowering.
Yeah, agreed.
So um looking back to your chief people officer role and your chief of staff days, please share with us, how did you determine the skill sets and capabilities of the workforce? And as we move to a more skill based and project based economy, how do you see this approach changing?
Oh my God, it was painful. I'm just thinking about all the manual tasks and the linearity of trying to do things. And, you know, there was a lot of, um, talking to people and understanding what are the skills you have? What do you think we need? Trying to map then job descriptions. Because listen, and some of these companies, they were big companies. We didn't have the job descriptions well defined. We didn't know what was needed. So you're putting that together along with then the inventory of the people to know the skills. And it was just a very manual process. Um, and, one of the things, and you and I have been talking a lot about this, and I've been thinking back on it, is I remember how often we would end up being limited to what someone was doing in their current job.
Hmm.
And we didn't necessarily have the ability to go back and say, well, what else have you done in your career? And how does that apply to the future? And that's what I see changing now is being able to have a lot more data, a lot more understanding, and being able to process that information faster so that you can truly connect what are the jobs, what do you need, and who has those skills and who can step into them. Right. I think it's just we haven't had that structure, or I haven't had that fortune to be in the company that has those structures well defined. So that's what I see us moving into the future is being able to have all of that information. And it really aligns to the E3 leadership code, right? Express what you need, right? So when we can say what we need, what does good look like? What does that role look like? What are the roles, what are the skill sets that we need? And we can express that and vision, and then we can engage people to know what they have, what they don't have, how they can grow into it. Um, I see, AI and the tools now providing us that ability to bring it all together.
Absolutely. And it's about that transparency that, Portly AI that is putting together to be able to support organizations in expressing and engaging with folks to figure out, okay, what are the skill sets that we're going to need on a particular project for a particular innovation, for an initiative that we're doing, and then who within our organization can do it. And as you said, um, it's typically a manual process, but when you're able to elicit those skills in a way that isn't laborious, it's more efficient, and you have some way of scoring and comparing, it just makes life easier, and not only that, more impactful for the whole experience, right? For the company and to be able to choose the goals, but very importantly for those individuals. And it could be their, stretch and growth opportunities, ways of them getting exposed to different things with other leaders in the organization, because I see this very fluid type of organization going forward where teams will come together for a period of time, 3, 6, 12 months, and
Yes.
then disbanding and then reforming. And that's going to be in place of, in my opinion, of the step ladder that we formally saw in the workplace.
I agree. And that's where you really need to understand what good looks like quickly, right? And so that people can pop into that new team and understand what their role is, what they need to do, what they're bringing, right? So often we start a new role, we have no idea why we were necessarily selected for it. And then I think having this data, like for what you showed me and Portly, like, oh my God, this would have made my life so much easier, right? Because I need champions. So like as a chief of staff, I was looking for champions all the time to come into a project. Well, how do you find that within your organization? Right? Usually only the manager knew what was going on. If you got a central database where you can understand, and oh, this is a stretch opportunity, come be part of this team, and we're going to give you that capability. I mean, that's powerful.
Absolutely. And we're so excited to get it out into the world. So thank you for giving us your perspective of, having been in these roles where you were tasked to understand skill sets. And as you said in your words, it was a painful process. So, Kathy, switching gears a little bit, what is your word or phrase that you use to describe the change and transformation process? And then also tell us why you've chosen this particular word or phrase.
So I'm going to go with a phrase. no one wakes up with bad intent. This for me, when we're driving change, we come across people that feels difficult. They're stuck in their ways. Um, and I really coach people on a day-to-day basis to think about if no one wakes up with bad intent, no one is waking up to make your life difficult, to refuse to do something. I truly believe this. If they're not waking up with bad intent, then what is stopping them from getting on board? And with that change, it goes back to that feud and with from we talked earlier about, but we need to understand what their blockers are. And then we need to learn how to, you know, translate what we need into words that's going to make them feel better and get on board with us.
I like that. No one wakes up with bad intent, and to get
Exactly.
behind what are the blockers, what's getting in the way.
Hmm.
Understood. So tell us something in your background that we might be surprised to learn, or something unexpected that has truly informed your approach to change management and organizational transformation.
I think people are quite surprised to learn that I started my career as a CPA. Because I'm very much about leadership and people. But my early days of being a CPA and being an auditor of companies, you know, before I was 30, I had been in at least 30 companies to look at what processes looked at, how did money move from one account to another and how did you make money? Um, and all of that business background has really been powerful in helping me think about, it is results. That's why we're in business, right? We're not in business to make everyone feel good. We're in business to drive impact, right, and performance. So, people are very surprised sometimes that how did I get from a CPA to a chief people officer and that journey in between?
I couldn't agree with you more with respect to that business background. I mean, for me, I was a commercial lender at the start of my career. So I was grounded in the language of analyzing financial statements and assessing risk. And so those skills have served me very well throughout my career. So I think that everyone should educate themselves on the language of business, no matter what function you serve in a
And I'm
company.
sorry, Susan, I got to take this back to Portly for a second. Like in my mind, that's what I'm excited about because if we're able to use AI to pull that out and someone to look at your background and say, well, actually, she was a commercial lender. Wait a minute. Those are the skills. Because if you're working now in a different industry that doesn't understand what commercial lending is, AI can see and put that together for you,
Yes.
right? And that now you're not limited to what you've done today. It's your whole life experience that can come into this and how you can serve the organizations.
Yes, 100%. One of the things I really love about the platform is that it it surfaces things that maybe I wouldn't consider skills that I have, maybe because I take it for granted, and it elicits them. Or sometimes we get emotional about our backgrounds and we start to judge ourselves. So with the platform being unemotional about it, it's surfacing all sorts of skills, and it's taking it from a number of sources, data you've provided in terms of resumes and cover letters and performance reviews and things from the organization, perhaps, and so forth. And it's coming up with a skill set list that does it. It's not necessarily just, hey, just check a box. It's truly and dynamically changing, and the scores of your skills are also changing based on circumstances as well as what you're learning over time. So um thank you for pointing that out, because I think it is important for people to understand that there's a fuller picture of somebody who comes to you, that just because what they did in their last position doesn't mean they don't come with something else that you don't know about and can discover and unlock. um, so fantastic. So Kathy, in closing us out, what would you like our audience to remember about our conversation today?
I think the biggest thing is to help people understand that this isn't an either or kind of discussion. I think we have two camps some days that people are like performance at all costs. We have to win. And then you have other folks that are very much like, well, we have to worry about our people and their well-being. And this isn't an either or conversation, that it's actually both. And that to drive high performance, you have to take a human approach. You have to start with the people and create that virtuous cycle, and then the results will follow. So it's a human approach to high performance.
Absolutely. So, Kathy, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really a very powerful conversation. I certainly enjoyed it. And, I want to pull out what you've been saying about this people first kind of approach. So, I want to reiterate your code, if you will, your express, engage, and execute, which is informed by emotions. And I also want to bring this out because people say, "Oh, emotions are they tag emotions as bad or good,"
Mm.
but I learned about 10 years after business school or so, after attending a women's conference, that emotions are is data. Like, we didn't hear about this when I first went to school. And so it's taking that data and that information to then drive towards the purpose of
Mhm.
the organization, as you so wonderfully pointed out to us. And I think that what you were saying around AI, that it's going to put a spotlight on things that might already be broken, but it's how, so with that transparency, how can you then be nimble? And I loved your framework of using the feud: fear, ego, uncertainty, and doubt. So that's another framework that we can all use in our work and elicit with folks how the organization might look going forward. What are the opportunities, and what are the opportunities to co-create? Once you name your feud, you could get it out there and co-create from there. So thank you again for your wise words. So we want people to find you, and you can find Kathy in a couple of different ways. Please look her up on LinkedIn. That's Kathy Eastwood, Eastwood, Kathy with a K. And you could also find her via her website, which is kathyeastwood.com. If you would like to learn more about Portly AI and the Squad Talk, please visit portly.ai, portly.ai. And as we say in the squad spirit, keep growing, evolving, and leading the way. Thanks so much for being here, Kathy.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.